to, of course, industry projects and other projects that are given to you as part of the work that you are doing. And we are delighted that we have experts, project managers themselves from, a medical healthcare industry company who are going to be taking you through these nitty-gritties and giving you the tips and the tools that you can use to better manage projects, make the system, make the process efficient, make it more organized so that it takes less time. And at the end of the day, you don't end up regretting that, oh gosh, I forgot something and we've messed up. So it is with these tips and tools that we bring you today's session. And Dipanshu, back to you. I hope all of you students enjoy the session today. There is going to be a Q&A segment at the end, so don't hesitate to ask your questions, put it in the Q&A tab of the webinar, and we'll make sure that we pick up these questions, and both of our experts today are going to be answering these questions. Nikhil and Kalyan, thank you so much for making the time. And as you can see, we are also showing you glimpses of the workshops that we have been conducting around India with high school students, teaching them this very, very important life skill and managerial ability, that is required not just in school, in personal life, but also as an industry ready skill for them to be future ready and to be job ready. So with that, let's get it all rolling. Dipanshu, back to you to introduce our guests and get us started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tinu ma'am. Now I would like to welcome both of our experts. Mr. Nikhil Rai is currently in a senior management role heading the program management team with Providence and also has 19 plus years of industry-wide experience in driving many projects and products from inception to go live. He is a key player in building the brand value for Universal Studios and Knott's Berry Farm product for the zombie rides in the studios, which has been a big attraction for Universal. He worked as the head of pre-sales team for the global AT&T and IBM partnership for $250+ million in value. He is currently working with Providence, whose vision is to bring the change in making healthcare more patient-centric. Thank you so much, Nikhil sir, for joining us. Our second expert for the day is Kalyan Sunkari. He is senior engineer and program manager handling the BI team with Providence and also has 13 plus years of industry-wide experience in driving many projects and products from inception to go live. He has also previously worked as the lead program manager for Accenture. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Now, I'd like to give the platform to both Mr. Nikhil and Mr. Kalyan.
Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dino and TGLF and JA and PMI. It's a great opportunity to be talking about project management here to y'all. Hopefully, we can add some excitement in your lives and you have some takeaway from project management. Obviously, a little bit about me again. Been doing this for 19 years. Been in multiple companies in the US, like AT&T, IBM, Boeing, GE, and many other companies, and now with AT&T, and then now with Providence for the last 2 years. So we'll just take you through the crux, the basics of project management, and hopefully we get few of you all excited about this career, about this, what project management can bring to your day-to-day life, what project management can bring or program management can bring to your careers. If that excites you, we've actually also been passing on the same knowledge to young adults or kids in 9th and 10th grade as well in Hyderabad. So you're not too early to figure this out. So so thanks for being here. I'm just going to show you a deck of ours and then walk you through it. Me and Kalyan are going to be here. Let me pull this up. How do we share? Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Sorry, we normally use Teams, so I'm very new to Zoom.
So we can see the screen, sir.
Okay, awesome. Sweet. Okay, so just to get started, Tina was kind enough to tell us that we are, so I do run a team of program managers at Providence. What Providence Healthcare is, just to give you a quick overview, and then we'll jump into what project management is. At Providence, we are one of the oldest healthcare organizations in the United States. We have 1,300 caregivers or 1,500 in Hyderabad, but then we have around 120,000 caregivers. We call our employees caregivers. We have 52 hospitals and 950 clinics across 7 states in the Western United States. We are not for profit. And we've been around since like 180 years. So we're very, very old. We're not a new organization. And we're all about our vision, our values, and promise of giving back healthcare and compassion and dignity. So we live by this. And what we are doing in Hyderabad is healthcare has been in this same way of doing things since ever. So we are infusing technology of moving healthcare from healthcare 1.0 to 2.0 by bringing in IoT, AI, health products, technology, automation, all kinds of really fun stuff on how to improve the day-to-day life of our doctors, nurses, and also any of our patients that visit any of our 52 hospitals and 950 clinics. That's the journey of Providence. We are in a journey to go from healthcare 1.0 to 2.0, and we're in the midst of it, and obviously it's going to take a few years to get to where it is, and we are an industry lead in this. Why program management? Program management is what is driving all of this, bringing all these different pieces together and trying to make sense of it. And we know what the outcome needs to be, and how do we bring all the stakeholders together and drive a meaningful impact of these programs. So that's what our team is all about. So if we go a little bit into project management, like I said, I've been doing project management since 19 years, and I've not done different things. I've very much focused on project management since I went to college, and I graduated with a degree in project management, so know a little bit about project management. So it's not a new concept or a process, but it's growing. It's growing very fast. And you have an organization called PMI, who gives PMPs, and we have PMI EF Educational Foundation also partnered with us today. So what we're going to talk to you about today is we're going to talk to you about introduction of project management, the different stages and the different cuts of project management, like scope, how do you manage time, cost, qualities, stakeholders, risk, and everything else. And the big key factor is communication. Communication, teamwork, and leadership are the foundations of project management. You can plug a project manager or a program manager in any of these fields, healthcare, oil, space, it doesn't matter what you're trying to build, a product or anything else, the foundation remains the same. So if I talk a little bit about what project management is, it's a vast knowledge. And what you're seeing here on the screen, it basically talks about that integration, scope, cost, communication, quality, schedule, risk, stakeholder, and resource. These basically add up to what the foundation of project management is. We're going to have Kalyan, who's my colleague from Providence. He's going to talk to you more about all of these as we go through the deck. But right now, if you want to know a little bit about a scope, you need to know what the scope of a project is before you start anything. You need to know how much money you need to do a project. You can't be very whimsical and just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to start the project and I don't know how much it's going to cost me. And I don't care how much it's going to cost me as we go through the project. Cost and scope are very, very important. Like we said, communication is very important. Projects go wrong all the time because we don't communicate well. If we don't communicate well, issues land up, a lot of scope creep lands in, and there's a lot of issues. Quality, it's also the ownership of a PM or a project manager to make sure that as we go through this delivery model or the journey of delivering a project, quality is also kind of kept at a very high level, and we're delivering. Schedule is very important. You know, you have all these projects like, hey, I want to build a bridge that needs to be ready by the end of the year. And if I promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars, and it's not ready by the end of the year, and I say, oh, you know what, it's going to take me another year, and then it's going to take me another year. So scheduling is something that we plan up front. And obviously, things affect it as you go through the schedule, and it can go up, it can go down, but you have a stronghold. As a project manager, you have a stronghold on your schedule, and you know where you're going to land. Risk, uh, I normally like to call project managers nothing more than risk planners, because project management is all about, I've never seen a project without risk. That's a sweet world that we are not all fortunate to have, that we go into a project and everything is goody and tushy, and there's no risk and it all ends up really good and awesome. It barely ever happens. So risk is something that we always envision, we plan for before going up for a project. We actually plan for all the things that could possibly go wrong. So if you know what all could go wrong, you've planned for it. Obviously, there could be things that are outside your box and you don't know, but you always plan for risk. Stakeholders are all the people who are joined with you in the project. It could be the people who are working for you, supporting you, or even the people who you're doing like we said, a bridge. Who are you building the bridge for? Who's going to consume the bridge? Who's investing the money into it? And then, like I said, resources are very, very important. You could be procuring and resources are kind of tied up. Is how and what are you going to procure? Who are going to work on this? What is the technical expertise? What is the knowledge? Who are the SMEs? SMEs, nothing more than the subject matter experts in this field. So you have to build your team from the ground up. You just don't walk in and say, you know what? Hey, you 100 people are going to work on this project. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to figure out what are the best resources for this specific project. And then when you go to the next project, would these same resources to be used, or do they change? And that would all be affected by the scope, the quality, the communication. What's the cost? What's the risk? So they keep changing. And based on those resources, we also procure, hey, what do I need to build this project or this bridge or whatever else? And then how do you integrate it all together, in this fun little project? So it's easier said than done. But if you like to solve problems, it's a great field to be in, because you're constantly solving problems and coming up with new ways and driving people and driving work. But then it's also about relationships. You have to, for a project manager, you have to build relationships to be able to get what you need from A to Z. So that's very, very important. So that's a very high level about project management. The awesome thing, like I said, being in the US, we have actual degrees in project management and stuff like that, but it's growing in India, and it's growing so fast. And there's a huge void in the whole project management field, which hopefully some of you bright folks or young adults could fill in the future. So what is the number of positions to be filled every year in 2030 across global industry for PMs? Is 2.7 million positions across the world. So it's huge. Everybody is running to be an engineer or a doctor and all of that. So this is a good middle management level that you start, and then you start working. You, as a project manager, you could be working with an engineer, or you could be working with administrator. You could be working with a CA. But on the same level, tomorrow you may be presenting to the CEO of the company, the CIO of the company. So you have to vary who you speak to and how you speak to them and communicate on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's a great field, and there's a lot to be learned. The core PM basics, what you see here, the iron triangle of project management, is called time, cost, and scope. We spoke a little bit about this on the previous slide. And depending on how the iron triangle moves, in which direction, your quality, cost, scope, and time can all get affected. So these four aspects in a project are very well connected. If your scope changes, what happens? Scope is nothing more that we lock in and say, hey, this is the project. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to deliver to you. And this is what the customer wants, or this is what my boss wants, or whoever wants it, right? So this is the scope. And what happens if there's a terminology called scope creep? Scope creep is nothing more than saying, hey, we want to do this, but we want to build a bridge which is 100 feet long. But then we come to figure out that, oh, you know what? This landmass to this landmass is 150 feet long. So we have scope creep. We only planned for building a bridge which is 100 feet long. So now that we have to build 50 feet more, that's going to require more time because you got to build more time. It's going to cost you more because you need to go and procure more. But then you want to make sure that you allow time and cost to go up, but quality doesn't get affected. Now, what if quality is not important to me and I say, you know what, time is important? I want to build this bridge and I'm going to go build it in the same amount of time, costing me the same thing. And I'm just going to rush through this project, irrespective of the extra 50 feet. The quality of the project or the bridge is going to get directly affected. So the iron triangle basically says that these four parameters always talk to each other. When one or two go up, the other two go down or up. So the triangle always keeps shifting, heavy on time, heavy on cost, scope, quality. So it's constantly fluidic and moving. So yeah. Little bit about PM basics. So we all heard of project management, but there's many different layers. There's different titles. When we talk about project management is doing a project which is, let me give you an example that I gave some school kids, okay? So project management is, say, I don't know if you guys are in 10th grade, okay? So you guys are in 10th grade. You're doing a project for your school, and you have a project for this summer. So that's a project. It's a very focused project that could be basically, let's say, I don't know, I'm not going to school here, so I'm trying to make sense of it. Like you're building something or a sports day event or something like that, right? It's a very time sensitive thing, which is going to happen for a month. And it's only for the 10th graders. And it's during the month of June and July. So the project is very much focused on time, and it's going to be very small, and it's going to move on. It's only for the 10th graders. Now, what's a program management? Program management is nothing more, which is multiple projects coming together under one umbrella. So basically, you have a project for 9th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade happening in maybe the summer, but multiple different projects across different grades, and they all are supporting one bigger cause, which may be your sports day, but from different grades, right? So you have multiple projects that all align under one big scope. All of them have to be aligned and talking to each other in some way. They cannot be drastically different, okay? They all have to support one another, and they're there for a specific reason for the overall goal of the program. So you have projects, which is a smaller chunk, which normally projects in the real world, we call them anything over, 3 months to 12 months is a project. Anything, a year and above, we call them a program. And then you have something else called a portfolio management, which is even bigger. So you have like a whole business. So basically, your entire school, the school coming up, or the school's construction, right? They're going to change the entire school's construction. It's a huge portfolio. It's going to take multiple years. It's aligned to something else. So you have a project that supports a program, multiple projects within a program, and then the same, if you take it a layer up, you have multiple programs within a portfolio. So yeah. I wouldn't say the old way. From many years, we've always been doing project management in the waterfall way. And there's multiple different ways of doing it. This is what we knew. Us old timers, we've been doing it for 18, 19 years. Obviously, there's different ways of doing project management now, but this is all the way back from World War I, where they only knew how to do things a certain way. Or when you try to basically build a car, you build a chassis first, then you put the doors, then you put the engine, then you put this. So this is, the car manufacturing line. So you basically initiate a project. Initiate a project is, hey, we got this new project, and this is the great idea about, we want to build a brand new car. So, okay, we're going to go build a brand new car. So that's what we're going to initiate. What's the scope of the project? Oh, we want a car which is a sedan. It's a 4-door sedan. It needs to have a trunk which is this big. It needs to have such big wheels. It needs to have a bigger engine, and so and so and so. This is what the scope of the project is. Then we go to the planning phase. We say, oh, you know what? Where do we get the chassis? Do we build the chassis in-house? Do we, what kind of doors? What's the frame of the doors? How heavy is the car going to be? What's the headlight? So you start doing all your planning after we've done the initiation of the new project, and you do the planning and say, this is the plan on how we're going to deliver this project and close it out. Execute is the next phase when we have a very strong plan and we start executing on this plan. And then you have something called monitor. As you start executing, you're monitoring how your execution is going. You want to make sure that what is planned and what is being executed kind of matches, right? So we come up with these amazing plans, which could be like 100 pages, but when you actually go to execute it, you end up with something completely different, which makes no sense. So monitor is that one crutch which kind of sits between plan and execute and sits there. Close is nothing more that you say, you know what, I've done a fantastic job. We initiated the project. Whatever we planned for, we delivered and we're closing the project now. So this is the olden way of doing things. Since 2010, Agile and Scrum, if you've heard of these terminologies, that are you Agile, Scrum and Safe, and all these different terminologies have come up, which basically says you work in smaller iterations. In the sense, in the waterfall way, we did all our initiating, planning, executing, monitoring. Now, if something went wrong in execution or in the monitoring, we don't close the project. We go back to stage one and we say, you know what, let's get the books out. We're going to start planning again. So this is the waterfall way. When it comes to Agile, this was developed in Japan. The Japanese seem to do everything right. Then it kind of moved to Jeff Schwaber in the US. They came up with this concept of Agile. It basically says is we keep working in a circle. You basically plan for something, the same thing, you have plan on that side, and then you start executing, and then you check. So it's the same thing, plan, execute, monitor, plan, do, check. But you have an extra terminology there called adjust. In waterfall, you have to go back and start from scratch in planning. But in Agile, because you work in sprints is basically saying, I work in these 1 week or 2 week or 4 weeks, whatever, it depends on you, that every 2 weeks I take small scope of work and I deliver this 2 weeks of work. Then I break up that work into another 2 weeks. And then I break up my whole year into 24 different 2-week cycles, and I keep delivering them. And adjust is something in Agile that you don't have to go back to planning. You can just kind of pivot on the fly and say, you know what, we messed up in execution. Let's pivot. As we continue to execute, we will basically go back and fix the planning. So it's all happening in lifetime. So that's the biggest difference between waterfall and Agile. And you've got project management, program management, and portfolio management. Don't know why it's not shifting. Okay. This is a little bit about Agile. I hope I'm just going to play a small video. Obviously, I don't think there's geeses in India, but geeses are nothing more like big turkey birds. And we want to just show you this really fun video about teamwork. So in Agile, you don't have too many leaders. It's basically the team. Let me just pause. Okay. The team decides together in which direction they want to move. And basically, you've probably seen birds in the sky, right? They always move in this flock. So they move in any direction and they pivot in whatever direction they need to as per the weather, as per any eagles or whatever else. So I just want to make sure that you guys can hear the audio. So we're just going to play this little quick 1-minute thing. It's called Lessons of Geese and the Art of Teamwork. So here you go. Oh, I'm sorry. I think you couldn't hear the audio.
Yes, sorry, Nikhil, we couldn't hear it. I think you'll have to do share sound. Might come up in your view options on the top of your screen.
Oh, sorry. Like I said, I'm not. Oh, here we go. I'm so sorry. Should I repeat it?
Yes, please. Thanks.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't. Can you just confirm you can hear it again? Is that better?
Yes, it is. Thanks.
Sorry about that. Awesome. So I just wanted to stop it here. So this video, I feel empowered when I see this video a lot. So I do a lot of the trainings for all the new incoming. So hopefully one of y'all ever joins Providence. We're always hiring, but whenever new caregivers or employees who join, I do a lot of the Agile and trainings and stuff in-house. I always show this to our new caregivers because I feel that it's so amazing that there's the way the geese kind of function together. They're empowered, the leadership on how they innovate. There's no blame culture, and there's a lot to take away from this. So it's really empowering, and that's why we always show it to everybody because it's really powerful. Yeah. So cool. We'll move to the next. If I can move. Oh gosh, how do I? Okay, so yeah, it may look funny, but this is an anatomy of a project manager. What just a few things, we'll just touch about it. It talks about what really makes you a project manager or a program manager. So we'll just go really quick through this, so you gotta kind of get gist of it. I for details. Every little thing. You have to focus on. You cannot let anything slip by going, oh, you know what? It's okay. We can just let this go. Oh, it's okay. This may not be important. You got to know 360 as a project manager, what is happening around you, what is going in, what's going out, what could be the issues. So your eyes are always open. Your eyes are always looking for the minute of scrutiny and details about everything that's happening because we always say the buck stops with the project manager. You can't say that, oh, you know what, the people constructing the bridge messed up or the cement that we bought wasn't good. It's always the project manager's fault. You have to be a leader. It's very, very important. And like you say on the right side, head on straight. You have to have a great perspective. You are empowered to take the decisions for the project, for your business, for the company you're representing. And you have to have your head on straight. You have to have eyes for the smallest of details. So look ahead in the sense you're envisioning where the project is going. You're envisioning a project manager is nothing more than you could be a project manager in your own life. You're envisioning the smallest of details. You have your head on straight. You're always planning for your future, right? You guys are in school or college. You're going to graduate. What are you going to do after that? So all that is very, very important. Ear to the ground, always know what's going on. You cannot be a project manager, like I told you previously. You will present to VPs and directors and CIOs and CFOs and whatever, but you also have to basically know how to balance of having the ear all the way down to a person who's basically shoveling the sand to build the bridge. So you need to know all the way from the bottom to all the way to the top. You cannot be disconnected saying, I will only talk to the top leadership. The gift of jab is you have to be peppy. You have to be on the spot. You have to think on the spot, and you have to communicate really, really well. You may be the best project manager, but if you can't communicate and get what you're trying to say across, it's not going to help you. You're not going to be successful, unfortunately. Nose to the grindstone, continuously working hard. It's not a cakewalk to be a project manager. So you're constantly evolving. You're the one who is the one-stop shop. We always say you're the one-stop shop. The buck stops with you because you're constantly going and trying to solve the problem, trying to constantly move the project ahead. You cannot have a project that comes to a grinding halt. Looks over their shoulder. Like we said, you're always planning for risk, even though that they say that it's a, cloud nine and everything's going to go well. No, you have to plan that maybe there could be something goes wrong, even though that you have everything that's perfect. So it's not always going to be perfect. Heart of gold, you have to be good natured, I would say. You can't walk in because you're working with people. People have emotions. People have a heart. You cannot be crude. You cannot be an enforcer. A project manager doesn't mean that you're an enforcer and you're just going to come and kind of whip your way through the project and make everything happen. You need to know how to balance to work with different people. How do you pivot? How do you talk to this person differently or that person differently? How are you compassionate? Is very, very important. The heart of gold. The elbow grease does all the hard work. Like I said, you should be able to jump in any position within your team and say, you know what, or somebody's sick and they're not able to come for a week. You don't say, oh, what, the work stops. No, you roll up your sleeves and you jump in and you get going. You get your team moving and you're always leading from the front. A project manager is not a leader who pushes his team front and sits in the back. You're always leading from the front. Thick-skinned, that's very, very important. That's something that you develop through the years. I've developed it in many, many years. People will say things. People will say the project will fail. People will say your team is not doing well. You're not doing well. That's fine. You have to have a thick skin to be in the game. If you want to be in the game, have a thick skin. That's very, very important. Like we said, a hands-on leader. You have to lead from the front. It's not that something you roll in one day every 2 weeks, check on everything and you move away. That's not what a project manager does. The gut feeling, you have to trust your decisions, trust your instincts, because you're taking decisions which is going to impact your team, the company, the project. It's all on your instincts. Have a leg up, helps overcome obstacles. Like I said, once you analyze the risk, it's not only about that, it's how do you overcome these roadblocks? How do you always keep moving ahead without any stoppage? And last but not least, you're on your toes, alert to what's happening. You never take a step back and you're always conscious about what's going on. So yeah, that's a little bit about a project manager and it's a little funny way of showing it. But these soft skills are very, very important. It's the technical know-how of what you do. That's your second phase, right? You could be a project manager building a space station or an aircraft or anything in an oil rig or even in healthcare, right? But that's all secondary. Your foundation is what we're showing you here. Just going back to what we showed you before, initiation, like we said, is basically defines a new project. It's the vision, the overall scope. You move to planning, where you establish the scope of the project in detail, define the actions. I'll have Kalyan, who's going to show you some tools, what we use in project management, but we do a lot of documentation, right? We have project plans, we have charters, we have something called a RAID, which is a risk analysis. We have project plans. Yeah, we have so many different ways. So it's not like we're just kind of winging it. We actually have proper templates and plans. We have dashboards that we use. So there's a lot of moving parts, and that's how we control how the project is moving through all these tools that we have at our disposal. Executing is very, very important. Obviously, planning and execution is not always alike. What you plan doesn't happen, and how to make sure that what you actually planned, you come close to it. So that's very, very important. Like we spoke earlier, monitoring and controlling is very, very important. What you planned and what you're executing has to be monitored and controlled. You can't just go with a grain of salt that, oh yeah, what my plans are, it's going to turn out exactly the same way. It doesn't happen, never. Obviously, closing is very, very important. You have the formal acceptance. Everybody's happy. Everybody signs off. Everybody in the world is happy. Whoever you deliver the project, the teams who worked on it, and you have a very clear and concise closure. So it's not like, oh, here you go, we're done, and let's move on. So there's a lot of processes that you go through just to close a project. That's a whole different step of processes. We do something called UAT, that's user acceptance testing. That's in software and stuff like that, to make sure that everything is tested, validated, and everything else. So yeah. Key elements wait, this is me, right, Kalyan? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know where I had to stop. I can talk a lot, so normally Kalyan has to stop me because I can keep talking for hours. So again, I know there's some repetitive stuff here. The key elements of project planning. It's very, very important to identify who your stakeholders are. Who are the key roles here? What are the responsibilities? You always want to plan these things before you start a project. You don't want to wing it. I've never seen projects be successful if you're going to just go and jump into it with 2 feet and kind of wing it. Kickoff meetings. Project managers are in a lot of meetings. 80% of our day goes in meetings. We're meeting multiple different teams because you normally don't have one team working in a project. You could have multiple different stakeholders, multiple different teams at different layers, management. How do you be the glue that brings it all together? So you have these meetings. In these meetings, we do something called MOM, not mom, not your mother. It's called MOM, which is your minutes of meeting. So we normally send out these we have these templates which says, hey, me and Dino spoke about this, and me and Kalyan decided to do this. So everything is documented, what happened, what are the takeaway action items, what is the planning, what are we going to come back and talk about the next meeting? Everything is planned and everything is shared out in that MOM, meeting of minutes. We define the project scope, the budget, the timelines. We have, like I said, these project plans where we're tracking all of these things because these things are very fluidic and they keep moving. So we need to know, as a project manager, what is going up and down. Setting the priorities and the goals. If you're in a project, you're doing it for a reason. There is a priority, there's a goal. We're not here just for fun and games, and there is real money to be lost and real time to be lost. So you have to define the deliverables. Deliverables is nothing more that, hey, I plan to deliver this bridge, which was 150 feet long. Now, if it changed to 100 or 200, that we will pivot to it, but we define very clearly when we do our planning that this is what we're going to give you. This is what we're going to give you in that amount of time. It's going to take us 12 months or 2 years. It's going to cost us $1 million. So we define all of these things. So nobody tomorrow stands up and says, oh, you didn't tell me. A good example is, and again, I want y'all to connect project management to your day-to-day life. You don't have to know this to be a project manager. You can actually use these things in your day-to-day life. This happens a lot when you get off your flight and you don't have a car and you take a cab. Do you just jump into the car and you say, oh, you know what? Take me wherever you want. My house would be probably 100 kilometers from here. You don't know which direction you're going in, south, southeast, north, northwest. No, right? When you get in, if it's not Uber and Ola, you haggle, right? You're like, oh, I need to go to this apartment. this apartment is 50 kilometers away. The person is going to haggle, and you're going to haggle back and forth, saying it's going to cost me 1,000 rupees, right? So you define how much money it's going to cost you. You define how much distance you're going to cover. You defined that, hey, I've got 2 pieces of luggage, or are you going to turn on the AC? So all these things are planned. And then execution, you want to make sure the car and the driver get you to your destination. So yeah, like I said, just small things to compare your day-to-day life. You create project schedules. So the schedules, nothing more than say, you know what, stage 1 is going to take me so many days, and stage 2 is dependent on stage 1 to be complete. I was also a part of a company called Boeing. So we built the 787. That was the project that I was in. So you have the projects where you're building a plane, right? So you want to make sure the fuselage, the wings, everything is in place, right? Imagine you go to take your flight and there's one wing missing. And you're like, oh, well, let me just get on the plane. You wouldn't get on the plane, right? So you want to make sure that everything is there that we planned for, and the schedule of the plane was delivered in the due time. Risk assessment is very, very important. Like I said, we're constantly planning for what can go wrong, and communicating the project plan. Just because you made a project plan, that's not for you to keep it in a silo or for you to hide it from the world. You want to make sure that every person who's working for you or supporting you, or person who's taking delivery of the project, knows your project plan, knows how your project plan is moving up or down constantly, weekly, bi-weekly. So that's very, very important. Okay. What is a project? We spoke about this. What's the purpose of a project? The importance of scope over time. I think I've been talking about this. We come together. A project could be anything, right? You having your school day, you delivering an essay for your school, your homework. You can make anything structured into a project, anything that has a purpose, anything that has a requirement, anything that's important, that has a set scope or a variable scope, anything that's going to take you time or it's going to cost you money. Some people would say, you know what, it doesn't cost me money, it only costs me time, but time is money. That's what we always say. But by you doing something and not doing something else is costing you money. So time and money are very much associated. Okay, so I'm going to pass this off to my colleague Kalyan, who's going to take you through the nitty-gritty of all the steps that I gave you at a very high level. He's going to kind of go double-click into it, and then I'll come back for the communication and wrap it up. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll probably continue towards the end of this presentation as well. Thank you. Go ahead, Kalyan, all yours.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. So yes, when we are talking about, you have heard Nick talk about scope management, and when we're talking about scope, we always think about like what is the definition of done, and what is my responsibility, and what needs to be achieved by defining the scope. So these are agreed upon even before you are starting your program or your project. Like for example, when you're moving, you have to purchase an item. The scope of your item or the task would be to understand that item is falling within your budget, and the defined prescriptions of your requirements are being met. Like for example, you're purchasing a mobile phone. You would need certain brand mobile phone, or you're purchasing with respect to the within the same budget of say 10K or 20K or 30K, and the features like you want to have a very good camera or the good battery backup, or it should be a smartphone or a basic phone, and all that stuff would be defining your scope. And that what are part of that includes activities which you need to do or perform as part of the scope would be falling under the scope management. And what are the constraints like which you would have in order to achieve the scope. So you always define your boundaries and responsibilities. So based on which you will define your success criteria for the entire project delivery outcome. And once these get-go or the acceptance criteria is met, then you would be saying that, like, okay, we have achieved like what has been defined in the scope of the project. For example, when you're building a bridge, the scope of the project is to build a bridge, and your responsibility is to understand like, what are the materials needed, and what is the time frame, and what are the constraints like for the environment permissions, or you have to have the permissions from the respective regional heads and all that stuff. And then the acceptance criteria is to have the bridge ready with the respected standards which have been mentioned by the engineering team. So whenever so you have to always you're having this charter, the goals, deliverables, tasks and activities, exclusions, constraints, and acceptance criteria are needed for you to understand, like when you're defining any of your scope. If you are adhering to each of these subtasks, you will be able to manage, and you'll be able to avoid your scope creep, what Nick had mentioned in the previous slides. Okay, so Nick, moving ahead. So as part of your program management, so when we are moving, Nick, next slide, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not moving. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sure. So we have initially learned about the iron triangle, where we are talking about the scope, the time management, and the cost, and based on which the quality is assigned. For example, like when you are saying that I tend to deliver my assigned task, but I would take my own sweet time of, say, 1 year to deliver it, then it is not time managed, right? Like, for example, you have to be for the syllabus. For example, let's take a classic example of your college curriculum. When you have to achieve sit for your exams for the end semester, you should complete your syllabus within the time of your stipulated 6 months of time. And if the course is not completed, you will not be able to achieve or deliver or write your exams in an effective manner, or because you are not taught what is to be written in the exams in the first way. So in order to have a right amount of time should be allocated to each of the tasks, and you should define a deadline, because a project or an activity without a deadline is always a postponement. You will never be achieving it to a completion towards it. Because if you have a deadline, then you would be trying to achieve or stick to the deadline to achieve a deliverable out of it. But so the phases of the time management are, you have to have the schedule management, or the plan the schedule, and you have to define the activities, like what you want to achieve, sequence the activities, estimate activity resources, like how much time or what are the resources needed to achieve it, and activity duration, like how much duration you want to do the same activity, and develop the schedule. This is a classic example of how you would prepare for your exams, right? Like, for example, you're planning your timetable that you want to prepare for this topic or the subject, for example, of mathematics or a physics. You have defined the activities. Okay, these are my subject chapters which I have to understand and read about it, and you're sequenced in a way saying that, okay, you are familiar with certain topics which you want to cover them up in a much more faster manner, and whichever you're not so familiar or you want to read a little bit more, you would be sequencing them so that prioritizing them way ahead in time, so that you have ample amount of time. And resources needed, like what are the textbooks you would need, or the guidance from the teachers and all you would need. Duration, like how much duration you would need to learn each of the chapters or the topics. For this topic you are well versed with or well aware of, you would not spend more than 1 hour or 2 hours. But if you are to learn something from scratch, then you would be spending a lot more amount of time over there. And once you develop the schedule, you would always be able to achieve and see the performance improvement, as well as achieve very good results. Because time management is something which would help us to achieve the unimaginable, as well as attain the very most beautiful heights over there. Because you have defined the scope, you know what to want to achieve, but without time management, you would never be able to reach in the stipulated time. Because we always have this phrase, right, English, where you have the early bird catches the worm. So when you are not early enough in your time management is not well managed, then you might be late and you might miss out on the opportunities which you are presented with. So it's good to be familiar with the time management phases. So it's very similar, and like what we've talked about over here. So now moving ahead, Nick.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happens to this. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Now coming to the third aspect of that iron triangle, the cost. When you're talking about the cost management, like you let's again take example of your purchasing of your mobile phone. Okay, resource planning is needed, cost estimating is needed, budgeting is needed, and cost control is needed. Okay, so these are the various phases when you're talking about the cost management. In a project, when you're dealing when I'm delivering any of the project for my company or an organization, I need to identify what are the resources available for me to deliver it. For example, if I don't have the capability or the resources available with me, I need to have them planned and need to be part of the team so that they can deliver the same. In the case of your mobile purchase, you would have to identify like what are the resources you would need. Like the resources would be to be having the idea or the tech gurus you would be reaching out to, or you would have your web forums where you would be referring to, understanding like what you want to purchase or what are the features you would need, which would cater to your needs. And estimating, like even in order because you are still studying and working, if you're not having your own pocket money, then you would be reaching out to your parents. Like you would need to go ahead with them with an estimate, right? You can't just vaguely say I would need a phone, and they would ask you, the next thing they would ask you, like what is the cost of the phone and what is the model of the phone and how much you want to spend on it and all. So the estimating should be done way before. In a project per se, you would be estimating so that you need to control, give an envision, like for example, how much is it costing for the organization and how much it would cost me as a project, like whether it's a viable product for me or not. Without an estimation, I can't have a very vague budget because I need to allocate certain resources and the salaries and all would be paid out of these estimations only. So I would be estimating way before in advance. Like for example, if you have to plan for the 2024 project activities, we would be doing the planning activities in 23 itself, like we are in the final quarter of 2023. Then we will be defining a resource planning, we will have our cost estimating done, and then we would assign the budget's allocation. Like for example, there are 10 projects working on the same team, then I would assign the budget accordingly, saying that one team would need a major chunk of the budget compared to the rest of the other 7 teams which are working in the same project. Okay. And once the budgeting is done, the next important phase of cost management is to have the cost control. Because you can't just have or allocate the budget, like unlimited budget would never be there for any of the teams. An effective way of implementation of project management is to have a recover the cost and control the unnecessary costs in the phase. The cost control phase would help us to identify what are the areas where we need to tighten the budget, or we need to have a very effective measure to control the unnecessary expenditure and reduce our overall overhead costs for the project and moving our product or a company into the profitable margin. The cost control can be of various scenarios. Like it can be of having a much more streamlined process where it would improve your shorten the timeline for go live into your production market, or it can have your bulk procurement of the resources, which would also improve in your cost control. Procurement and cost controls are almost intertwined in this segment, whether it be a software or any of your other market areas like your work, which you want to work ahead in the life cycle. Okay. Yes, going ahead, Nick. So when we talked about cost, right? Like procurement is an integrated part of the cost management when you're talking about it. When you're procuring anything, we always have to plan. We need to identify the need, collaborate, strategize, manage, analyze, negotiate, and finalize. For a basic example of a procurement is like as simple as doing a bulk purchase for your own house. Like when you're doing any of the product supermarket shopping, grocery shopping you do, when you would say, okay, if I'm planning or procuring in bulk, then my cost for the entire product would be reduced. For example, there's any function within your household, you want to purchase water bottles, okay? And you would plan, okay, if they are saying, say 100 guests which are coming into this function, I would need at least 150 water bottles would be needed, because someone might drink more water. Then you need to identify, okay, who is the which service provider is giving you the best cost availability to achieve, and they should be able to deliver the same product without impact on the quality. And when you are doing this calculation, you will be strategizing. Okay, you will be identifying multiple partners whom you can collaborate with and understand who is giving you the best price quotation, and then you'll go ahead with them and managing with them. When you are reaching out for the solicitation, you would also have do a background check, right? Like you are partnering with them, whether this guy would be able to deliver to you the product or not, or whether he is having any previous history of bad remarks, like saying that he's not able to he's promised but he has not delivered and all. You do that kind of analysis as well. And whether you also do a market search, whether it is the best price given to you when compared to the market area. When you've negotiated all the terms and the policies, then you're agreeing on it, then you're finalizing on it. in your regular procurement cycle as a corporate entity, you would always be in this cycle of having this plan, all these 6 phases where you will be having this plan, collaborate, strategize, analyze, negotiate, and finalize. Whenever you're finalizing, it's documented version of it, like it's to the we'll always cross our x's and mark our cross our t's and marks our x's. So where we will say everything is finalized, everything is validated, and it should be adhered to. And if there is any breach of the contract, you will be having a penalty or fines to be imposed upon the other party which is breaching the contract. So procurement lifecycle would not only allow you to understand the market price cycles, it would also help you to understand effective cost control for your products or the programs. At the same time, it will also help you to get the best price and the best service from the multiple various provide vendors, because you're analyzing, you're reaching out to multiple partners and collaborating with them. You can get the best buck out of the value. Okay. So whenever you're doing any of the project plannings, the first thing would always be the planning phase. The procurement lifecycle can be integrated or tagged along with your planning phase, so that like you are well ahead in the curve to understand like what would be your requirement and how effectively you can manage your cost in this iron triangle of the project management. Okay. Yeah, moving ahead. Now, the most important factor in the iron triangle is the quality. The quality, if you're leaning towards the topmost of your one side of it's the scope or the time or the cost, your impact would be on the quality. If any one of these 3 items are messed up, your quality of the product would be messed out. And there have been instances where in the rush to deliver it on time and in order to achieve it, they have messed out on the quality. There might be some providers who had taken ample amount of time, but they had messed up on the cost, because like the quality is ensured and maintained, but the time had been increased so much so that your time had been messed up on that part. Like for example, there is a new app I'm launching into the market. Okay, and if I want to have the best product to be launched in the market, I've taken around 1 year of time to deliver it. Now, some rival might have been the same, might have the same idea, and they have been able to launch to the market within 6 months of time. What would happen is the early adoption of the market or the app application would be for the early launchers. So the people would be saying, okay, this is another just a replica or another copy of the same app which we already have. So they will not prefer to my app, even though if it's of a very good quality or if it's having a very cost-effective way. But because I've taken more than 1 year of time. But quality management is a very important feature in your different life cycle of a product life cycle or program delivery. So what would happen is without a proper quality management system, you might end up having a very buggy or a laggy product. So what would help us, what does this quality management help us to achieve is to have a prevention or a corrective measure to be taken in a timely manner. And there is always an overview of a responsibility to be assigned, whether the risk analysis or risk management can be done. And if there is any hiccup, and you would always have a high quality product with a scope and features to be released to the market. Because you would have your process and production control in place, you would have the change management, corrective and preventive actions are to be taken, which is in a timely manner they can be taken, and it will also help us reduce your cost involved. The many big firms, like for example, there have been many cases where a very leading of this FMCG companies had faced issues with the quality management. And Toyota had been a classic example. There have been various cases of quality issues early in the inception of the company, but because they have the quality management in place and they have adopted to the project management and these places in checks and balances in place, which they have improved their quality like anything, and they had been known for the reliability in the market, in the car segment, right? So always an effective way to have a quality management is you need to achieve all of these phases whenever you're checking into place. Because if you don't have a change management, you would don't know what change has been occurred and what has been changed within the code or how it has been changed. And if you don't have a corrective and a preventive action, whatever change has been done, it will be having an impact on your overall product delivery and the quality of it. And management responsible, so that you are inspecting an internal audit is being done. And especially in the healthcare, you can't just on the fly go ahead and say, okay, I just need to do a change or and deploy a new production change on the fly. We need to have to go through each of these phases where change management is approval is taken. The management responsible people are approving that, okay, this is a valid change and we have approved and there is no risk or impact involved with this change to be done. And if there is any issue during the course of deployment, there is always a corrective or a preventive action. Like we can actually roll back this change so that we are not having any impact to the existing systems. So we always have this kind of management cycle in place, and every organization which is in the market like would definitely have this quality management to have a checks and balances in place. Yeah, going ahead. So we had talked about stakeholder quite extensively in the initial phase of the market. Like whenever you're saying a stakeholder can be a person or a group or an organization in a decision making when they're taking of an activity of business or anything or in your project. For example, in case of a school, the stakeholders can be your parents because they're paying for the fee. The stakeholder can be your school principal, you can be your school management and your teachers and all, along with the students. And the government would be there, obviously. And you'll always have multiple, and sometimes the stakeholders cannot be part of the organization. They can have no official affiliation as well. They can be outside of the organization, but they would still be a stakeholder. Okay. The different classic example of a stakeholder is like you have two types of stakeholders. Like one is an internal stakeholder and the other one is an external stakeholder. Next slide, please. Yeah, click on it. Yeah. So for example, when you're taking about an internal stakeholder, you have a sponsor for this product. Like for the sponsor can be anyone. Like for you're building an app, the sponsor can be your person who is funding you for this app development. Or if you're working in a team of project delivery, then your client can be your stakeholder. The project team is a stakeholder, internal stakeholder. Project manager, portfolio manager, and management of the entire thing for the team would be your internal stakeholders. Whereas in your external stakeholder, the end users, the suppliers for this product which needs to be made or developed, the subcontractors. For example, if it's a hardware or physical product, you need a subcontractor to facilitate and develop and deliver this. The government authorities to give the permissions and all, the local authorities, local communities, and the media can all be part of your external stakeholders. Because if I'm launching a new app, I might need to reach out to the government saying that, okay, this is adhering to all the telecom policies and guidelines, and it's not breaching any of those, and they would need to authenticate and give the seal of approval on my application. So all these stakeholders would be, whenever you're planning for any of the project, you need to categorize who would be a stakeholder in this particular program or the project. If it is a delivery, then you'll have your client stakeholders. If it is an external stakeholder, like for example, your suppliers or your subcontractors or local authorities to be taken into consideration. Okay. For example, if you're doing any of your functions in your housing community, okay, you take an example. The stakeholders would be the Housing Resident Welfare Association. You need to take a permission from them, and you would have your suppliers who would be your stakeholder, again, external stakeholder. Internal stakeholders would be your family who is organizing this event and all, and the sponsoring would be from your own family. And the managing is again by your cousins or your teams and all. So, and the local, if you're having any of your photographers and all the media presence, then it will be an external stakeholder over here. Okay. So you are able to figure out, right? There are stakeholders whenever any project or a program to be delivered, you have to identify that, because once and only when you're able to identify the stakeholders, you would be able to assign and address each and every stakeholder so that you can have an effective communication with each of them. Because without the effective communication, there might be a loss of miscommunication, which might result in a miscommunication and end up having a failure in the project delivery also. Okay, going. Yes. So when we have to identifying the stakeholders, we will need to document their needs and analyze their influence and interests. And we need to also identify what role they would be playing. Nick, can you manage the expectation of the stakeholders, and then you need to identify what they would be what role they would be playing in the project or in the project, and you need to take an action on it. Because once you have to manage the expectations of the stakeholders, then only you will be having an effective communication with the stakeholder. Without an effective stakeholder management, you will not be able to deliver a project or a product in a successful way. Because you need to prior stakeholders. If it is if the client is not satisfied with your delivery, you will have to manage the client expectations. And if you need to take corrective action saying that, okay, this is not delivered or this is not meeting your expectation, then we will review and adjust based on our agile methodologies, and then we will be delivering it again back to them so that it is meeting their expectations. And if any of these six phases, if it's failing in any of your phase, then we will be having a major disruption in our delivery life cycle. Because if you're not able to document the needs of the stakeholder, then you will not be able to deliver to them. And if you're not able to analyze whether the stakeholder is working for the project or against the project, and if you'll not be able to manage the expectations of the stakeholders, and if you're not able to manage the expectation, you will not be able to take an action on them. Okay, going ahead. So we always have talked about, right, the interest and the influence. In a stakeholder mapping, we always have to identify. Once you've identified your stakeholders, you need to understand whether he is having a low influence or a high influence in the project, or a low interest or a high interest. So these are 4 quadrants which we are defining or categorizing every stakeholder, whether it be an internal stakeholder or an external stakeholder. If he's having a low interest and low influence, then you'll only just have minimal contact with them, and you'll only just share need to know basis information kind of them. But if it is having a low interest and high influence, then you will have to anticipate their needs and monitor their regular updates. You need to keep them updated. And if it's a high interest and high influence, like a client or a sponsor, then you would be regularly engaging with them, and you should keep them satisfied. Because if at all they are not satisfied, then you would be having a major repercussions on the project. Okay. And high interest and low influence would again be where you need to have them informed completely on the day-to-day activities or the stakeholders, like stages or the progress of the program, and you need to keep them monitored or have them informed, like any other decision you're taking, any of the change managements and all. Okay. Next slide. Like, for example, like who all would fall under each of the, like high interest, low influence would be your project manager, end user. Like they can be a part of both internal stakeholder and your external stakeholders. Okay. And you can have the next, click on next, please. Sponsor and portfolio manager would be of high interest and high influences. And then you would have supplier, media, and local communities, low interest and low influence. The low interest would see, if you can see over here, local authorities, government and management, they might have low interest in your program or the project, but they would have very high influence. For example, if they say, okay, we are banning your app because it's not adhering to any of your policies, then it is a very high influence on your program. You're not able to deliver, or you can't release your product only into the market. So you need to be very mindful about the quadrant of low interest and high influence, as well as high interest and high influence also. Okay. Yeah. Now we spoke about cost management, stakeholder management, procurement lifecycle, quality lifecycle, and all. But in all these phases, there is a phase where you need to be anticipate the unexpected also. That is called as your risk management, because there are always a level of uncertainty in whatever thing we plan. However, how much ever you might have planned for this activity, there would be a potential risk lingering around, and it can impact your product. Okay. For example, you are planning to leave early for your school. The risk can be that you woke up late on the day, or your transportation had a failure, your bus broke down, or your car broke down, or two-wheeler broke down, and you might have been reaching late to your school. Or there can be other unanticipated risk, like your cook didn't come on time and you had to cook again, or your breakfast was late and all this stuff. So the risk can be in any other form. Like in a program, when you're delivering, when you're planning itself, you need to anticipate. You need to identify what can be the risk that can impact my program. And we need to analyze whether it's a positive risk or a negative risk for the program. And we need to prioritize them. We need to rank them based on 1, 2, and 3 order. And we need to assign a risk owner for each of the risks. For example, we need to also respond to the risk and monitor this. What has happened was, like initially when we were doing in one of my previous organizations, we have done all the first 3 activities. We have identified the risk for the program, analyzed the risk, and prioritized the risk also. But the 4th activity of assigning a risk owner to each of the risks, we missed out on that. And when the actual unanticipated activity has occurred, we were struck out of the blue. We couldn't, and we didn't know who would take ownership of that particular risk, and we were caught and we were caught unguarded, and we had to scramble around to figure out like a way to come out of this unanticipated risk, and that had impacted our production environment, and we had to have a mitigation steps were not in place. Like we had to take a considerable amount of time to come out of that. So always we need to be assigning a risk corner for each of the risk. If it is not assigned, the risk corner is not assigned, whatever plan or prioritization you have done will not have a positive impact, like when you'll not be able to address the risk when it is occurring, because that the risk corner would be ensuring that there is an mitigation activity planned and performed when the risk occurs. Okay, going ahead. So we are seeing the risk, right? There are different types of risk. It can be a scope creep, cost. Okay, let's take an example. Like for example, I'm a doll manufacturer. Okay, and I'm just having a basic doll version of it. A doll should have a head, 2 legs, 2 hands, and a body. Okay, torso. That was the initial scope defined. But now, after the market study, the market team is coming and telling me that, okay, you should have some more features into the doll, whether it should have the hands and legs should move, or it should close it, blink its eyes and all. They're asking me. That's again a scope creep for me. Now, because of this increase in the scope, my cost might have also increased, because I need to now procure more active or more items to assemble this doll, or I need to have a more labor or more people to be involved in the assembly line so that we have this product available. And because of this additional new features into the doll, my time of this delivery or assembly of this doll or manufacturing of this doll has also gone up. That's again a risk. Now, technology, what would happen to the technology? Like initially, I just need to have a basic bare minimum doll. Now, because of these additional features, I might need to upgrade my technology, or the factory machinery might need to be upgraded. Now, people, initially, I just need a very basic education for this assembly, but now I would need a more technical workforce to assemble or to deliver this particular product. Click on next. So you have your communication. Like if this communications is lost, basically between the stakeholders and my sponsors, that again would be resolving in a miscommunication or loss of product delivery in this. And the next one would be your procurement. Click on next, please. So because of all of these impact, like my procurement cost, because I'm not planned for these new additional parts for this doll manufacturing, has the procurement would be at a higher cost. And my cost control would again be indirectly impacted, because I'm procuring towards the end moment in the nth minute, and my costs have shot up. And overall, again, my entire project life cycle, the iron triangle of my scope, time, and quality is being impacted, because the cost quality has been impacted because of that. Okay. So if these are the different types of risks. You have 7 types of risks. In any, these would be your broadly classification of all the risks, whether it can be your personal life or it can be your professional life. You would always have these kind of risks involved. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So what does a RAID mean? So it's nothing but your risks, assumptions, issues, and dependencies. So whenever a risk arises, you need to identify whether it's an opportunity or a threat. Okay, a risk can be, for example, you have seen there is a drop in the market price for a certain commodity. You can it can be an opportunity for you, because if you purchase it now and it is having a longer shelf life, then you are getting a very good deal on that entire commodity. You are purchasing it in bulk. You are getting it. It's an opportunity for you. And it can be a threat for the manufacturer, the person who is selling it, because like he is losing a lot of money on that. Okay, and the same way in a project also, the certain risk can be an opportunity for you, but it can also be a threat for the project. And assumptions, like what has been, we are assuming that certain things are by default like taken in for convenience, like for granted. For example, like when you're joining any, when you're reaching plus 11, plus 1 or plus 2, like for example, class 11 and class 12, the basic assumption is that you guys have already cleared all the examinations till class 10. Okay, and the issues, whenever any of the events that have occurred that have damaged, like which would jeopardize your entire delivery, the risk issues are something which are not been anticipated and which would have an impact on your project delivery. Dependencies, like we are always defining, right? Like what would be the dependency to achieve your task in a successful manner. So RAID would help you to, you need to perform a RAID analysis on any of the product and the project which you're delivering. So that you need to anticipate the risk and prepare for them, and assumptions which are basically taken for granted. Issues, this is something which you have to accept, but at the minimal issues which need to be mitigated would, even they have been jeopardizing the project, but you should have to ensure that the risk or the damage or the impact is minimal. And the dependencies are something which you need to analyze in the planning and the planning phase itself, so that you would have a much more visibility and a clearer assigning in the task for the agile methodologies. Going ahead. So when it's an opportunity for you in the risk, when you said it's a positive impact, right, for a project, we will the order of sequence, we will always exploit the risk when it is an opportunity. We will share and we will enhance and we will accept it. See, end of the day, if it's a risk, an unanticipated outcome has occurred, we will have to accept it. But the only way how you have to approach is like, if it's an opportunity, you're exploiting it, you're sharing it and enhancing it. But if it's a threat, you're trying to avoid it, transfer that risk or mitigate it as so that to minimize the negative impact. Like issues can be a threat and you will have to avoid or mitigate the minimal impact, like how it can have on the project. Okay. Yeah, going ahead. Now we have talked about multiple different things. Like we talked about stakeholders, we talked about risk management, cost management, time management, scope management, everything. The most and basic important feature of having it is like project integration. Okay. These multiple teams can work in different silos, or they can have in a multiple segments. But when you are integrating all of them or bringing them all of them together, the project manager plays a very crucial role. The integration is where you might break or make the product. Okay. And you need to have a very good ownership. Like you need to have the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders when you're doing a project integration? You will have your tasks defined, you have your resources, stakeholders, deliverables. And you should always involve the coordinating of all the elements or teams involved in the delivery of your project. For example, you have in your stakeholders, you'll have your government, customers, owners, employees, suppliers, lenders, and community and society. Because sometimes as a product, when you're delivering, it can have an impact on the society also. You will have an integration into the society, acceptance from your product. For example, you have developed a new feature of communication, which is surpassed, which is giving you much more privacy, and it's more secure and much more faster, and it can do way better than the existing communication social media apps which are available in today's life. Then the acceptability of your society would be more. If not, if it is not catering or it's not providing something new, then the society might reject it. And the and what are you catering to? Like if your integration factors are not aligned to your product, then there would be a failure in your delivery also, because you'll not have a successful delivery. If you move to the next slide. So when you're having a project integration, right, like you need to have a project charter. A charter is nothing but we'll have defined what are your goals, who are your sponsors, what is the milestone achieved. Like what milestone can be as small as like, okay, you are achieving the first phase of like I am creating a new app. Okay, my first phase is like login page is my first milestone. That can be a milestone. Like you will have multiple milestones defined in your charter. And develop the project management plan. You have to have the plan ready. Like without a plan, you will not have a deadline. And without a deadline, you will not be able to have an effective time management to deliver the project. And once you are having the direct and managed, we will have to direct and manage the project work. And you will have the respective resources available. And you always monitor and control the project work and perform the integration and change control. Because if you don't have the change control, then you will not have an effective quality management. And end of the phase of the integration management or a project would be your closure of the project. Like it would always be your plan, initiate plan, monitor and control, then your deliver and your closure of your entire project. Integration is nothing but a combination of all of the phases of what we are defining as a project management. So you can see over here the process of developing a project charter. It's part of the initiating phase. Then you have your planning phase where your scope statement is being defined, and project management plan is delivered as part of the planning phase. Execution or the developing of the product is part of the execution. Monitoring and control your monitoring and the project work. Adjusting, again, integration and change control is part of your monitoring and control. Closure is your closure of the project. The first 5 phases, what you have seen in the earliest presentation, what Nick had presented, these are aligned to your integration. So integration management is process or covering all of your project management phases. Okay, go ahead, Nick. And these are some funny examples where you have seen the integration between the teams had failed and resulted in a failure of the project. For example, the bridge, they had a slight miscalculation of the alignment of the bridge, and they have ended up having this disparity when they have to integrate both the sides. And the same way is with respect to the door knobs, 2 different teams were assigned with fixing the door bolts and the locks. Then they ended up having misaligned because of the area where they have to fix them up. So these are some of the goofy examples which he had presented over here. Now, I know we have been presenting a lot of data and details, and it's too much to have everything to be monitored and tracked without an effective project management tool. And over here in our current organization, we are referring to Azure DevOps, or like we leverage Microsoft products, ADO, which helps us to plan, integrate, and have our code management repositories, and have the change management cycles and release management cycle, and have an CI/CD defined on it. But as a project manager, you need to be aware of all of these tools so that because they can help you to plan your activity and have a definite timeline, like when you would be having the delivery of the project and how you want to deliver it, and what is the each of the delivery milestone assigned for this particular product, or the sprint plan would be easily able to deliver it. But the market currently we have multiple. These are some of the tools which are available in the market: Jira, ADO, Trello, Timecamp Planner, Basecamp, and Power BI. But professionally, most people are leveraging Jira and ADO, and some of the small scale organizations are leveraging the Basecamp and Timecamp Planner also. And not only with respect to the project management tools, because the huge amount of vast amount of data which we are dealing daily, Power BI is something which is being leveraged. As a program manager or a project manager, you need to be able to visualize and tell the beautiful story of how you are leveraging or seeing this data. Okay, and in our current organization, we leverage the Power BI tools to showcase this data to our CIOs and CEOs, where they will be able to take an informed decision, because the data, if you're giving it an Excel sheet, might not be more effective when you're visually presenting it. Nick, if you can just click on the next slide. Where, for example, this is our roadmap we are presenting for our ADO, where we have defined each of the project has been broken down into features, and each feature is having a definite timeline by when it should be achieved. And they are also in the backlog. The teams would pick up accordingly, and they would have the multiple phase of stage, like new, in progress, and closed, or it should be in the testing phase. And also we have the area paths for each of the team, and then we have the respective feature what is being developed by them in this respective feature of that particular product. And the next, so this is how we are showcasing it to our CEOs and CIOs, where they are saying they are understanding what should be the corrective or the necessary action, because as a program manager, your direction is to guardrail of your product or a program delivery to be successfully happening. Okay, and in order to achieve that, you need to take an informed decision. And it not only helps you, the data which is presented with the BI visualizations will help you to take an informed decision in a timely manner, and you're well ahead in curve to be not be impacted with any risks or vulnerabilities available in the market. So this is some classic example where we are seeing our entire estate of entire Providence, where we are seeing, okay, what is a tech stack, where we are at this point of time, and how do you want to go ahead in the future plan for the next 5 years are being taken based on the data which is being showcased, like how secure we are and what are the major impacts which we might achieve if you are not adhering to or taking this change in progress. So as a program manager, we would expect you to have a basic understanding about the project management tools, and also leverage the Power BI, because that would help you to achieve or tell your story in a much more effective way. Yeah, going ahead, Nick. Yes, this is Nick. I think you can take up on this.
You're doing presentation. I'm on communication.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So there's a very famous quote, and I love this very much. There are always three speeches for one which you actually gave: the one you have practiced, the one you gave, and the one which you have wished you have given. Okay, and it always happens with each and every one of us. Okay, you always prepare and practice, but you deliver something, and you would always wish, okay, I would have done some more improvisations when you're delivering the same speech. So when as a program manager or product manager, you would effectively need a very good presentation skill set. Okay, Nick, to the next slide. What do you need to be an effective presentation? You tell them what you are about to tell, you tell them again, and you repeat what you have told them. These are very high level structure of your presentations. Okay, and if you are able to do it, because you're repeating this idea or the crux of what you're presenting, the people would be able to understand and will be taking away certain aspects of it. That's the same way which we repeat also. Like initially, we have presented the agenda of the session today. We have spoke about the very high level. Nick had given the basic idea of what we'll be talking about, and then again I repeated what Nick had presented in a much more elaborate manner. And so you always have to have less text and more meaning whenever you're presenting to anyone. And your content should always be clear, simple, and should be consistent to what the narrative you want to present. You should, and if you're not having a brief or an engaging presentation, okay, it will not be effective, and it should also be visually rich and appealing. And if we don't have these, so it can be a boring presentation. Like whenever you're presenting to any of the target audience, you need to identify who is your target audience and what is the time limit you have, and how effectively you want to communicate the crux of your presentation in a much more visualistic manner, come in with less text possibly. Okay, if you adhere to these things, you can nail any presentation which you're doing. Okay, yeah, going ahead. Yes, it's all up to you, Nick. Over to you.
Thank you, Kalyan. Appreciate it. So just kind of wrapping up, communication, where we all started, is so important because the presentation, all the pieces come together, and if communication doesn't land right, it's all just going to fall apart. So let's just show you. So yeah, we have this beautiful video. Thanks to Dino, actually. We just want to play this for you. It kind of gives you a reality check. It may be a little funny video, but this is actually what really happens day to day. I've seen it across my career. So here you go. I'm just going to play this for you. So yeah, just the way we saw the video, what you actually want, what you plan for, and what the outcome is could be completely different things. And like I said, it may be a funny video, but this actually happens every day in project management. So that we're just used to it and we become numb to it now. But yeah, if you enter this world, you'll definitely see a lot of this. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes into communication, like Kalyan just said. How do you get your information across? How is it done virtually? We're in a virtual world these days, across in person. How do the meetings go? Do you basically, are people's egos hurt? Does everybody trust you? Are the decisions taken unilaterally? Do you assume what I'm trying to say and what you understood completely different? And do you have the right skill sets and culture? We are in a global world. We work with people across the globe. So people are not all the same. And then what may mean something in India may mean completely different in the US or different countries. So yeah, it's just different ways of putting it. I wanted to ask Dino, so there's something we do, we actually do this. We do this as a communication check with a lot of our young folks, or even people who are presenting in our company, and I've done it in many of my companies. We call it the elevator pitch. What is an elevator pitch? Elevator pitch is nothing more that imagine you're on the 10th floor of your building or some office you went to visit, and long behold, you're the only one in the elevator, and you get on, and there is the CEO of Google or CEO of Microsoft, whoever excites you, and it's only you and them. And you have 60 seconds from the elevator going from the 10th floor all the way to the ground floor. Now, you have this amazing idea in the back of your mind, and you have this gentleman or this lady with you in the elevator who you really aspire and look up to. Or if you're in a company like I'm in Providence and I have the CEO of Providence, what can I sell myself or a product or an idea to this person and articulate this? I don't have pens. I don't have a draw board to draw something or a PPT like we're showing you. It's just you, your thoughts, your process, and how can you pitch yourself, introduce yourself, present what the problem is or what your idea is, or present the solution, share your valuable proposition, and end it with a call to action, and all within 60 seconds. It's harder than you think. Now, I don't know, Tino, I think we're already at 5:40. I don't think we have time to practice this, right? Or
Yeah.
do you want us to do one, or maybe they can try it at their places with themselves.
Yeah, or maybe you could give an example, between you and Kalyan, if you could kind of um, give an example of a 30-second elevator pitch.
Sure. So Kalyan, why don't you have me in the elevator. Why don't you pitch me in 60 seconds? And that's all it is. It's something that is very unplanned for, guys. And it's not something that you come prepared for, plan for. It's just abrupt. You get in the elevator and you have 60 seconds. So Kalyan, why don't you tell me a problem or a solution or a product or anything, 60 seconds. Or let's make it funny. Kalyan, why don't you pitch me a pen that you've come up with? And it's a magical pen. I don't know what it can do. Let's just pick something really goofy. A pen. Just pitch me a pen.
Okay. Hello, Nick. My name is Kalyan, and we have been constantly evolved to the digital world. So where we are taking notes on your notebook, but we are facing to have it digitally copied to the MOMs to be sent into the email and all. So I come up with this really good pen, which can not only help you to write, the ink would help you to write down in the normal regular way, but it will also help you to scan what has been written through this pen, and it would be easier. It digitally copied onto your email. It will be sending it to you whatever written in this notebook, and you can just send it across to the email you want to shoot it across. So would you be interested to procure this product for your team so that you can minimize the time being saved, so that like they're spending on to copy or the draft what has been taken down into your digital opportunities? So
yeah, Kalyan, it sounds very intriguing product. Let's meet for 15 minutes tomorrow and discuss it any further. So yeah, thank you. And the elevator door opens. So that's all it is. It's something y'all can practice within your school, with your teachers, with your friends. It really helps you with communication. It's something we had not planned for this, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
it was
just being honest. We just thought about it, and this is what we actually do in our companies to help. Because we normally present to CEOs and CTOs a lot, so we're used to it. I can go and present, but we have a lot of new incoming people who get really nervous. So then this really helps you. So you just give a random topic, and we normally, to be very honest, we pick the goofiest topics, like a pen, like we said, or whatever. So try it. It may be helpful. I really hope it helps you as well. So yeah, that's the elevator pitch. This is something else that we talk about, the Tuckman model. This is something you'll probably hear about it. It's a very old model. It's very knowledgeable and very well trusted. It just says that there's 5 phases that you go through. And today, all of you all in this room listening to project management are in the forming phase. What is forming? It's just something you all have come here today to hear about project management. It's maybe something new, something you're anxious about or you're excited about. You may have come with a different thought process, what it would be, but now you may leave with a different thought process. Tonight, you may think more, research stuff will start storming. Yeah, you may have to think about it. And maybe you'll start going out there and trying to deliver, trying to be a project manager. Oh, should I get these certifications? Like I said, you can go to Dino and Dino can connect you all with us if you're interested to become one and get some certifications or industry experience. We're always there to mentor you if you ever want. We're always there. You can reach out to us at any point to help you through this. You have an edge by you have people in the industry who can walk you through this. So that's the storming phase that you're thinking it. Norming is something where you actually start sharing your goals, you start planning, you come off with what's the best thing. And then performing is maybe you become a project manager and you're actually leading the life. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't. Adjourning is something going, oh, you know what? I was a project manager for so many years, or maybe I don't like it, or maybe I do like it, or maybe the way of project management has changed. Like we said, from waterfall to agile. Adjourning just goes, oh my God, now we have to again redo something new. We're always constantly improving ourselves and learning. Even me and Kalyan, till today, we are going and learning. We're going and doing certifications. We are learning new ways in the industry best practice. So all it says is you start low, you go high, you learn something new, and then it may go back down, and there's nothing wrong with it. So it's just a part of life. It's called the Tuckman model. And what we always tell everybody is you should always feel you are in a psychological safety zone. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to take the next step and challenge yourself and challenge the processes. Everything that you see behind you has been made by one of us or somebody else. You're always evolving. So never feel that you're in a psychological danger zone, but feel safe to just go out there and explore, and it's okay to fail. You can fail 10 times, but you will succeed at the end of it. So it's completely fine. Gosh, why am I playing this? So this is a very, very important video. I'll ask you guys a question after this. But if you've seen this in the US, they have this in Boston, the rowing thing, but then I think they have a similar thing with bigger boats in Kerala, where they all row in sync. So I'll show you this video, and I do have a question to ask you about this, but yeah, please do see this video. Okay, so that's the end of it. Thank you to us. But on that boat, if you notice, I'm going to ask the questions to the participants. So you have teamwork, right? Everybody is rowing in sync. And if you notice, everybody was facing backwards, 5, 6, or whatever, and you have boats in Kerala the same. I have a question. Do you guys think that there's a project manager on that boat? Love to hear from y'all.
You can put your answers in the chat.
Give you guys a minute, and then I'll just quickly explain it as we wrap it up.
Yes, no, you can put your answers in the chat.
Yes, awesome. Love it. Yeah, just to, I know some of you may be shy, but so you have a team who is very together, they're all rowing in the same direction. And if you notice, if there's even one person who's not in sync and they're not rowing, the whole team will not succeed. Everybody else was facing backwards. They were trusting the person in the front, the project manager, to lead them in the direction, to lead them to the end of the race, to make sure the quality of the rowing was amazing, to make sure that everybody was in sync, and they got from A to Z. So there is a project manager, they all work with the team. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Teamwork is dream work. And yeah, project manager is a very important skill set and a very important role. And I just hope we've intrigued you all into what project management is. And thank you for your time, and appreciate it. Yeah. Over to you, Dino. We're all set.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nikhil. Thank you so much, Kalyan. Let's give it maybe 10 seconds in case there are any questions. Students and guests, in case of any question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A tab, and we'll make sure we pick it up for Kalyan and Nikhil to answer. And Nikhil, thank you so much for that generous offer for the young people on the call, in case they want to connect, to be mentored, to intern, for the opportunities at Providence. That was really, really generous and kind. And I'm sure there will be several who have joined us today who would want to, write in and intern, or maybe look at longer relationships with Providence, given their skill sets.
Absolutely. Anything we can do to help.
Okay, great. There don't seem to be any questions, so I guess everything has gone super well.
Love it.
Fantastic. Dipanshu, over to you to close the proceedings and close the webinar today.
Thank you, ma'am. So as we move towards just a second, I should start my video.
Yes.
Yeah. So as we move towards the conclusion of the event, firstly, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our esteemed experts, Mr. Nikhil Rai and Mr. Kalyan Sonkari, who have taken time out of their busy schedules to share their knowledge and expertise with us. I would like to also mention PMI-EF and their continued support in all our project management workshops. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of the attendees for being here today and for their active participation in the webinar. Your presence has truly made a difference. I would now like to invite Dinu ma'am for her concluding remarks. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dipanshu, Nikhil and Kalyan. Thank you so much for being here, for taking us through the intricacies and the tools and processes of project management. It's not just the 5 steps, the waterfall that you had mentioned. It's also about integrating all of that, because actually those processes are happening all the time. Yeah. And, it's not like, yeah, you may plan, you will initiate and plan, but there are a lot of times that you have to go back to the drawing board and replan and redo. So actually it's an intertwined, more of a web than, one step after the other. And thank you so much for making this easy, for making this simple, and, for our students to really understand not only in their jobs or in their lives or later in their lives as an industry skill, for them to say that they have the idea and the wherewithal and the know-how of project management that's going to be helpful for them in their future and in their careers as well. Before we say bye to all of our guests here, can we please request you to complete this feedback form? Please scan the QR code, or there is a link. Can I just request my team to please put the link in the chat as well? And we would request you to quickly complete the form, submit it before we say bye. It won't take you very long. These are all multiple choice questions, so it will take you only a couple of minutes. Requesting everyone to please complete the feedback, submit before we close today's webinar. Nikhil and Kanyal, we are definitely going to be staying connected for more such sessions.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Really, really looking forward to a long time journey with Providence and with both of you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dino. Appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Not at all a pleasure. Completely our privilege, Kalyan and Nikhil. Okay, the link is in the chat, requesting everyone to please just click on it, take it from there. We would love to have your thoughts and your feedback. Help us to do things better next time round. Bring you more such interesting webinars and topics for you all as well. Let's give everyone a couple of minutes. You could scan the QR code or take the link from the chat.
Dolly, I can see that you have raised your hand. You could, if you want to comment or you want to question, you can put in the chat box.
Okay, I think she's put it in the chat. Yes, absolutely. So, requesting all those who have joined, please click on the link or scan the QR code. But please make sure that you complete and submit. Don't forget about it. It should not be that we close the call and, you don't complete the form. So open out the link or scan the QR code so that you have the form with you. And yes, certainly you can complete and submit to us. Nikhil and Kalyan, thank you so much once again. And thank you to all of our young people who have joined the call and were part of today's workshop. Thank you. I'm already getting some in the chat to say that they have filled and submitted. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. We can, close today's session, but we look forward to receiving your feedback and for you to submit your forms. Thank you. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you, students. Thank you, everyone who's joined us today. Bye-bye. Good night.